good project's got to start somewhere, and this one starts with this reclaimed wood. We've got teak and oak. And with that teak and oak, I'm going to build this lovely little 4-string guitar. So I start off cutting and milling the timber down to the desired size. So all was going well, and then this happened. I blew a capacitor. It was going to happen sooner or later. One week later, looking very grumpy, started again. Right, back over to the table saw now. I'm going to start working on the fretboard, so I'm just going to start by pinning the piece of oak down, and then I'm going to split it in two. It needs to be a lot thinner. So as you can see, it's left a few scorch marks along here. That's nothing to worry about. There's a tiny little ridge there, so I'm just going to run it through a pass on the thickness of planer. That's a bit thin to go through on its own, so I'm just going to stick it to this piece of MDF, double-sided sticky tape it, and then run it through the planer. That's nice and flat now, just get it off the MDF, hopefully without breaking it. There we go. Clean all that sticky off with some white spirit. You don't need to see that. Right, now to the neck. This is going to be the front facing here. Then the fretboard will fit on here. So on the back side, I quite like to inlay a piece of oak. So for a bit of extra strength, and just because I think it'll look nice as well, so I'm going to trim this piece down and then figure out how to make the groove in here for this. So there we go, that's that thinned down. Now to figure out how to get that into there. I think that's the job for the router. Okay, so I'm going to go with the router to make this groove. Marked a centre position on each end of this piece of oak. and one on the actual back of the neck itself. Line those up. Just got a little clamp on them. Okay, we'll hold fast for a minute. Then I've got these thin strips of MDF which are going to act as the guide. Ready? Just going to tack those in with some small tacks. Fill those holes later. Okay, so I've got all those bits of MDF in. Remove that little bad boy there. And then use a router bit with a bearing on it. Press up against these edges and get that down to depth. So because this is a naturally oily wood, which is what makes it good for outdoor use, just going to give it a wipe over with the white spirit before I glue this piece in. So I'm just going to mark out the where the frets go. I'll not cut the frets until they're on the guitar because that's how I like to do things. For the fret spacings I'm using Making Poor Man's Guitars by Shane Spiel. He does a free downloadable template. So yeah, I think I'm going to set the fretboard about there. That's the nut. Good, gives me some idea of proper spacings now. So I'm just going to cut down some more teak to help form the body now. So it's probably blatantly obvious by now that there's no plans for this guitar, only the ones that exist in my head. So I'm just laying these pieces of wood out and drawing and making marks just to try and get an idea of the finished shape. Okay, so after a bit of messing about, this is kind of what I've come up with. This shows the marks here is where the electric pickup's going to go, and it's a little bit fatter than I would have liked, so it's going to come into here, so I'm just going to make sure there's some material in here to hold it all in nice and tight. Okay, so I'm pretty pleased with this shape. I'm not so sure about this bit. It can go here, it can go there, or it can go something like that, but we'll see. Like I say, I'm not sure about it. What I have realised is that the neck's just a little bit too wide. It all looks a bit too chunky. It doesn't need to be. The pickup will go about here. And so I'm going to shorten this by about a centimetre-ish. Curve it up like that. And like that. Put it straight across there and then put some shape in the end here. Crack on with that. job of the knife is I'm just going to glue the fretboard down, which I've trimmed. When I've got it glued on, I'll run it all through the router on the flush trim, so it tidies it up nicely. I'll just sort out the dowels that go into here now. So this is where the tune is going to go around about here. We get some dowels in here, here, here and here, and take it from there. So if you're thinking to yourself, why didn't he drill all these holes while everything was still nice and square? I'm kind of having the same thoughts myself right now. These little things are cool. I mean, I already might have started the pencil and then I remembered I had these, and they're just really good for helping line up your vowels on the other piece. Just line it up and give it a good squeeze. The dot where you want everything. Awesome. Just tap those dowels in. I'm not adding any glue to anything at this stage because I want to be able to take things off to shape them and whatnot. This will just help hold them in place while I'm working on it and line things up, hopefully. Now I can get to work on the cutout for the pickup. Start off by drilling it first with the forstner bit, and then finish off on the bandsaw. Finished off with a quick tidy up with the file. Then made a template out of MDF so I could recess the back of the guitar for the pickup. It's all starting to look a little bit like proper woodworking. Worrying. Then it was time to make a hole for the pickup's lady parts. I think that's a technical name for them. And then did somebody say something about proper woodworking? Look at this dodgy little setup here. But it worked in the end. Then I looked around and realised it's time for a tidy up. Can't carry on like this. Okay, this is where we're at so far. Getting ready for some shaping now, which is the bit I'm most excited and quite nervous about. I'm going to round off this end, make all this a little bit smoother and rounder, and a bit more sculptural. See how we get on. So after much sanding, this is where we're at so far. And I didn't like the tuner section, so I added a oak faceplate to that as well, which you can just see at the very end now. Now it's time for a little test fit. Okay, so the test fit went well, and I think I've put this off long enough now. I'm going to glue it together. Okay, so I'm going to get the pickup glued in place and get all the wires soldered up. This thing is getting very close to being completed now. So I get a lot of enjoyment out of making these videos and making these projects, and I just wanted to say thank you if you've made it to this point, this far. Well done. Maybe if you're not subscribed, you could subscribe, like or comment, or all three. It's all free and it just shows my little channel some support. Thanks again. So I'm just going to make a little cover plate for the pickup now. It's made out of walnut. Just a little quick montage here to show you how I did it. I also made a little plate for the back to cover that area there. That's just made out of plywood. And here I am making a nut out of just a bit of brass bar. I'll just glue that on later. And then, oh no, it's time for cutting the frets. I actually hate cutting frets. I made this little guide out of plywood to keep me nice and straight. And I started off with the coping saw, but quickly found the hacksaw, the junior hacksaw, to be much better at getting through the oak and exactly the right thickness for the frets to sit in nicely. And then I made a number one crude mistake. I slipped with the saw, put this little mark in it. I just filled it with sawdust and glue. It was as good as new. Okay, it's on to frets. And I think my method for doing this is a little bit more alternative, but this is how I do it. Start off by marking the length, then I trim it to length. And then I grind and just polish the ends to save dressing while it's on the neck. Now for the bridge. I've got some oak down on the bandsaw. and then I wanted some brass to go in the bridge, and so I used an old door hinge and cut that down and used the brass from that. I also inset a little offcut of black acrylic. So this is where I made my second number one crude mistake. I glued the bridge on, but I didn't bother measuring and getting it in the right position. I actually had to make an extension to the bridge to move it back 15mm. It just didn't sound right without it on. Okay, nearly there now, just the tuners to go on. Okay, so a couple of coats of finish and she'll be done. I really should have finished it before I put the tuners on. I can't be bothered to take them off now, so I'll just make that work. Once the finish was applied and cured, I added the strings. I just used standard medium weight guitar strings and used the top four. Gave a really interesting effect of a bass for the first two strings and then more guitar-like for the second two, and the two combined sounded awesome. We'll have a little listen in a minute. Like I've said before on my videos, I actually don't know how to play the musical instrument, so I'll get my friend Steve in and he'll give you a little demo on it, and then I'll get to find out if it works too.